Hey, Sean Chandler here for the Sean Chandler Talks About show, and today we're going to be talking about the Rocketeer sequel they just announced. We're going to be talking about Suicide Squad, we're going to talk a little bit about Rogue One, and we're going to spend some time talking about a documentary I saw today called Turtle Power, all about the Teenage Ninja Turtles. Now let's get talking. So I like to talk about movies, I like to talk about TV, and so I wanted to have a platform to do that. I don't know how many of these I'm going to do. I don't know if it'll be weekly. I don't know what's going to come of this, but I just wanted a place to talk about stuff, and hopefully you guys will join the conversation and comment on what I have to talk about below. So with that, the first thing that's on my mind is they announced they're doing a Rocketeer sequel about a week ago. And the key thing is it's a sequel and not a remake and not anything else. It is an actual sequel to the original film set about 6 years later, and they said it's going to star an African-American female. So it's set during a slightly different time in world history, and that's important because 6 years in the future, at a time period right before World War II, 6 years later, is a very different world for us. So that's very interesting in and of itself. And then, of course, they're going from having a white male to an African-American female, which is a really big change. And I don't really know what I think about that. On the one hand, I grew up with The Rocketeer, and, it is directed by Joe Johnston. I actually was the perfect age. I was like 10, 11, 12 whenever it first came out. I wasn't all three of those ages. I was only one. I just don't remember the exact year it came out. And I actually went to Disney World the summer that it came out, and they had a Rocketeer exhibit, and I got to meet the Rocketeer. Rocketeer. That's great English. Got to meet the Rocketeer there, and he did like a stunt show. It wasn't the actual guy from the movie, of course, but so really cool. I've got a picture somewhere. If I can find it, I'll put it in this video. So the movie has a special place in my heart. It's not great, but it's definitely very good, and it has aged very well. The special effects aren't too bad, given that they had a guy flying. And just since it was kind of a timeless story, it still feels relevant today. So based off that, I've always been interested in them making a sequel. The problem is the movie wasn't a gigantic hit. It didn't become like a big classic. So it's really a movie that people my age in their 30s remember, and not many other people. And so then when they go to do a sequel to it, that's interesting of itself. Like, why would you do a sequel to it? Why wouldn't you do a remake? And then likewise, switching out the gender and race of the person, I don't know if they're doing that because they're just trying to market the movie differently and try and pull in women, pull in minorities, and then pull in the people with the nostalgia factor like me. I don't know what they're doing. It just seems like a really odd choice for a movie. Like, who's the target audience? Because, it's kind of me because I've got the nostalgia, but it's a movie that's made for 10, 11, 12-year-old boys because it's not really a big, hard action movie for a grown adult men like me. It's made for younger ages, and I can still appreciate it, but I'm not the target audience now, but I'm the person that has the most nostalgia factor that would make the brand name relevant to someone. So I'm very confused by what they're trying to do. I'm very interested to see where they go with this. What direction they go. Is it like a totally different movie, totally different thing that's a sequel, pretty much in name only, the tones? I don't know, but I'm interested because I was a fan of the original, and let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Second thing I want to talk about real quick is Suicide Squad. So the movie came out, so I'll talk about my opinion on it in just a second. But what I want to do first is talk about all the stories and rumors that have been circulating about it over the last couple of weeks. So this movie has had all kinds of drama behind the scenes, apparently, as have pretty much all of these movies in the DC cinematic universe. At least once the reception to Man of Steel was good, but not great, and they decided they want to use it to springboard into this new continuity and new cinematic universe. As soon as that happened, it's only kind of been weird stories behind the scenes about what's going on. Whether that's Batman v Superman starting off as a Man of Steel sequel, then becoming Batman and Superman, and then becoming Dawn of Justice. And now this movie, you've heard stories about them doing reshoots to add more humor. And then this week, all kinds of stories have come out, and I don't know if they're true or not, But having seen the movie, they sound really true. And basically, the rumors are they made a cut of the film with director David Ayer cut it, and it came out and it seemed very somber, less quick, less jokey. And so they brought the people in that did the trailer and the ones that had Bohemian Rhapsody and Ballroom Blitz, they brought those people in to do their cut of the movie, and they came in and they did a cut of the movie, and then whatever we're getting is kind of some sort of mix of all of that. I don't know if that's all true, but having seen the movie, it feels like that's true. It feels like Warner Brothers couldn't decide what they wanted to do. They couldn't decide how much they wanted to let David Ayer just go for it. They knew there was a strong positive reaction to the trailers and to the tone of the trailers. And so the movie itself really feels like that's what happened. So I might as well just talk about the movie a little bit. I already put a review up. If you want to see my full review, you can click the annotated button there. It'll take you to the full thing. It's over 10 minutes long, so I'll just talk about it for a couple of minutes here. But the movie is very enjoyable when you're with the cast, and it's very unenjoyable when you're thinking about the plot. There's been rumors surrounding this movie about how the writer only had 6 weeks to write it. It feels like that. It feels like a first draft plot of a movie where he just had to go, all right, we've got to get a team of people together, and then they got to go on a mission, and then something's got to go wrong, and then it comes together in the end, and they save the day. It seems like the template they had, and he wrote a first draft that fills out each stop along the way. And then he's got a great set of characters to work with because he's got this whole DC canon. And then they gave him the budget to bring in some names like Will Smith into it and an up-and-comer like Margot Robbie. And then you get Oscar winner like Jared Leto. And so then you've got a great cast, so with great characters. The characters are really fun. They're put in fun scenarios. And then the thing tying all of it together is not very good. It's not a very good center line plot for the movie. And that's really the biggest problem with it. And that lines up perfectly with all these rumors we keep hearing about. See, the rumor is they brought the trailer people in to do a cut of the movie, and you can actually feel that in the movie, that perhaps there's different cuts and late additions and changes, because part of the movie has that same style of music as the trailers, bringing in the classic rock, and so right at the beginning of the movie, at the end of the movie, there's a whole lot of classic rock tied to characters to give a tone to each character. And then you feel that towards the end. But the middle, you don't notice it much. It's much more score. And so you can see where there was like adjustments to try and fit the tone of the trailer, perhaps. I don't know if that's true, but you can feel that, how that could be true. And these stories seem to have some validity to them. And so basically, overall, I would say I really enjoyed Suicide Squad for the characters and for the situations, but I can only give it a 6.5 out of 10 because the movie itself is very clunky with the plot and feels very first draft. There's big holes in it. There's a lot of questions. Why didn't they get Batman to help? And just asking these questions as opposed to just enjoying the plot that they have, because there's not much to enjoy about the actual plot and the actual villain of the movie. So as for box office predictions, the movie's tracking really well. It made like $65 million on Friday, so it's on track to make like $140-150 million, which is a huge opening for something that, if you ask someone 3 years ago, what's the Suicide Squad? People would be like, I don't know. I think at that point in time they mentioned it on the show Arrow, so it might have brought in a little bit more of the general audience, but mostly you'd have comic book people that would be aware of what it was, and that's a pretty small percentage of the audience that goes to see these blockbusters. And it seems like it's going to be on the same, or it's going to debut bigger than even Guardians of the Galaxy debuted, which is pretty awesome. But it's getting much worse reviews than Guardians of the Galaxy got in the same month 2 years ago. So it's not going to have the legs, probably. Now, the question everyone's asking, is it going to have as big of a drop-off as Batman v Superman had? Because that movie opened really big, not as big as some people thought it would, and then had terrible legs and fell off the planet. This movie's opening bigger, really, than people expected it to open, because it's an unknown property with only small parts for Batman, a small part for the Joker. But it looks like it's going to open big, but reviews are really bad. And so the question is, how's the audience going to respond? And is this going to be one of those movies that the audience really differs from the critics? Or is it going to be the audience lines up with them and this movie just falls off next weekend? I really have no idea. It's the time of year where I can see it having really good legs. And having seen the movie, I don't really know how audience are going to respond to it. Because you've got Will Smith being fun Will Smith, but you've got a terrible plot. And the movie itself is very different from the trailers in that if you just watch the trailers, you don't realize how much mysticism and magic and kind of weirdness that a general audience might not be into. It's really difficult to read how audience will respond to the villains in this, and so I could see them really responding poorly to it. But it is fun, it is funny, and it's got a lot of things people will want. I'm going to guess it's going to drop 55% in its second weekend, which isn't great and it's not terrible. It would be a very reasonable number for a movie that's overperformed like it has, and it'd be especially reasonable given the reviews have not been so good. And it's not too bad of a drop-off for also a superhero movie, but it's not great. So that's where I'm aiming, thinking it'll go 55% off, and maybe I'll be the incredible sightseer of box office predictions, or perhaps I'll discover I'm terrible at this. And so that's my thoughts on that. Next subject, I wanted to talk about, they announced actually just today, just this afternoon, that Jimmy Smits will be in Rogue One, which, if you don't know, he played Bail Organa in Revenge of the Sith, and so that's kind of this major character in the Star Wars lore that raises Princess Leia, but really, we haven't gotten a lot of screen time with him, and we've never gotten to see him as kind of as this guy that has a huge part in the rebellion. Jimmy Smits is a great actor that we didn't really get to see that, of course, in Revenge of the Sith, because there's no great acting in that, and his part wasn't too big. So I'm actually really excited about this, because it's bringing some of the best elements of the prequels, or the elements that can be redeemed, in using them to bridge into this new set of movies we're making. And I think that's a great idea. And I mean, if Ewan McGregor might show up a little bit, that'd be awesome. I'm not really into a lot of prequel movies. And when people have been like, hey, let's do a young Han Solo movie, let's do a Boba Fett movie, I'm not interested in that at all, really. The one that does kind of intrigue me would be a Ewan McGregor movie, because it expands the universe in the right way, and it makes the universe small in the right way, of tying things that really make sense to tie it together, as opposed to, Boba Fett, the movie. I don't want to know anything else about Boba Fett. I just want him to be like the spice to other movies. That's where he works and fits. Don't tell me all about his childhood. I don't want to know. But Jimmy Smits showing up, well, that's kind of fun to see him interact in a new setting, in a new way, and get to know his character a little bit more and go deeper into the rebellion. And it ties it together in a way that really makes sense and does not feel forced. The last thing I want to do on the first episode of whatever this is do a section called Sean Recommends, where I'm just going to talk about something that I don't really want to review, but I would recommend that you see or check out, and that's going to be a documentary called Turtle Power. I'd never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. Literally about 3 hours ago, I was just scrolling through looking for something to watch, and I came across this documentary on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles called Turtle Power. Didn't know if it was going to be terrible, interesting, or what, and so I just watched it, and then decided I'd talk about it now. So basically, this is a documentary on where the Ninja Turtles came from, and it starts by interviewing the two guys that created the Ninja Turtles, and kind of tracks it through the early 90s about is when it really ends, the documentary, and it talks about the impact over the last 20, 25 years. But really, it's about that first 10 years of how did it go from this black and white independent comic book to the weird mainstream bizarre thing where they were had Ninja Turtles on tour doing a music show back in the early 90s, which I remember from my childhood. I never got to go see it. I never got the video cassette of it or anything like that, but I remember the commercials for it from my childhood. And so it's really a documentary talking to almost every important person along the way. So you talk to the first creators of it. Then you talk to the marketing guy that got them connected with Playmate to create the Playmate toys, which led to the creation of the TV show, the first cartoon. And they talk about the origins of that, and they talk to the voices. You see all four voices of the Ninja Turtles, and then you see Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, who's the voice of Shredder. He's there too, and they all get together and have a little reunion. And then they talk to the creators of the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie from 1990, which came out when I was 9 years old, so I was the perfect age for it once again. And it's just a really interesting documentary about the history of this show that I watched as a kid. The toys, I had that first generation of toys because I was the perfect age to have them. I saw that first movie in the theater the weekend it came out. I saw Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, the weekend it came out for a birthday party. And then I also saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 and hated it like everybody else. But I played the video games they're going to talk about in this documentary. I'm the perfect age for this documentary. So if you love the history of this stuff, especially the early years of Ninja Turtles, and you want to know how that all came to be, this is a really interesting documentary. It's not told in the style of like there's a guy walking around, trying to get to the bottom of something. It's not really funny. It's not meant to be like entertaining on this extra level or anything. It's just a good behind the scenes documentary of how this thing came to be. And I found it very interesting. I've read that they're making a sequel to it that I assume would pick up in 1993 when this one ends and track all the way to the present. Don't know, but if you're interested in this stuff, I highly recommend you check it out. It's very interesting. It keeps you engaged. It's fast moving enough that it doesn't stick on any segment too long. So if you really want to know about the origins of the comic, it'll tell you about that, but it doesn't stick around so long that if you're obsessed with that, you'll be totally satisfied. But it will make you go, oh, I want to know more about that. And so then it moves on to the section of the toys coming around. It goes through each of it very nicely paced, so you get just enough time on each thing. So that's going to do it for the first episode of the show. I'm probably going to chop this up into little videos and put them on my channel just to see what comes of it. If you like this video, please click that like button and comment below with what you liked, what you disagreed with. Tell me I'm a moron, I'm totally wrong. Make your predictions about how you think Suicide Squad is going to be received by the audience. And if you want to hear me talk about more stuff, click that subscribe button and you'll get the rest of my videos as they come out. Thank you for watching.